Hey everyone, and welcome to What If Disney World. I'm Stevie.
And I'm Amy.
And today we're going to share our typical strategy for our perfect day in Hollywood Studios.
I find Hollywood Studios is the toughest park for me to navigate. It has so many awesome rides, but they have very high wait times. So it's hard to know where to go to first, what to choose for Genie Plus, etc. And the busier the day, the harder it is to navigate. We find Genie Plus absolutely necessary for our Hollywood Studios days. And it's also going to be somewhat difficult to really tell you our exact strategy because each day that we're there is different because of the variable of Genie Plus. You never know what time you may get for a Genie Plus return time one day, or a ride may sell out sooner than other days depending on crowd levels. So you definitely need a plan for Hollywood Studios, but you also have to be able to be flexible.
I think one of the good things about Hollywood Studios is that it's a smaller square footage park than Epcot and Animal Kingdom, for instance. So walking from one area to another is not quite as bad.
Yeah, that's so true. So minimizing zigzagging is not as important in Hollywood Studios, but we still kind of try our best we can. Mm-hmm. Okay, so we're going to jump in with a big secret. And that is Hollywood Studios typically opens earlier than you think it does. We call it early entry for the early entry. Mm-hmm. Utilizing early entry is absolutely key for Hollywood Studios. You know, this is the extra 30 minutes that Disney Resort guests get to enter the park early. But what we have found every time we've gone to Hollywood Studios over the past couple of years is that they actually open up the park earlier than that advertised early entry time. So, for example, if the park opens up at 8:30 and early entry would start at 8, we've found that they actually let you in at 7:30. And at 7:30, Rise of the Resistance is usually running. The other rides aren't necessarily running. They'll just let you line up and then they start running at the official early entry time. But if you know this secret, you can go to Rise of the Resistance first and ride that in the early entry for the early entry, and then have early entry, official early entry, to do other rides.
If the park hours are different, these times would shift, but plan that the park will open 30 minutes before early entry.
Right. But before that, you'll need to select your first Genie Plus at 7 a.m. And since I'll be talking about Genie Plus in this video, let me just briefly introduce it. There's a ton of really great videos on Genie Plus, but just to briefly touch on it, Genie Plus is the paid system where you purchase per person per day, and it allows you to book what's called lightning lanes to go through a faster lane and bypass the long standby line. You can book your first ride at 7 a.m. and then each subsequent lightning lane, either number 1, after you scan in for that ride, or number 2, 120 minutes after park opening for the first one, or 120 minutes after booking a subsequent lightning lane once the park has opened. It's really confusing at first, but you get the hang of it quickly. There are so many high wait time rides in Hollywood Studios. There's honestly a lot of good first choices for Genie Plus. I'm a nerd and I like looking at data. So I like looking at this website called Thrill Data. I also like looking at touring plans. They have a lot of great data that they put out and information. But Thrill Data is a website you can explore and look at wait time data, but also Genie Plus data. Slinky Dog is what most people will say to go for first because it sells out the fastest. But because everybody is going for Slinky Dog, I find it's really hard to get an early return time. So sometimes even if you're on right at 7 a.m. going for Slinky Dog, your return time might be 8 p.m. or 6 p.m. And that just doesn't work for us because we're going on Slinky Dog for our kids, and our kids might not make it until that late in the day when we're doing early entry. So alternatively, Tower of Terror, Millennium Falcon, Rock N Rollercoaster, or Mickey Minnie Runaway Railway would be other good first Genie Plus options. Slinky Dog does sell out the quickest, so you do either need to use that as your first Genie Plus pick, or you need to try to do it during early entry or shortly after park opening. And that's exactly what we like to do. We like to try to ride it during early entry, and so I go for Mickey and Minnie Runaway Railway as our first Genie Plus choice. I like choosing this as my first choice because I feel more confident that I can get an earlier return time, like maybe 9 a.m. or 10 a.m. And then if I can ride a ride earlier than 2 hours after park opening, then I can go ahead and select my next Genie Plus, which I would tend to choose Tower of Terror next probably. And then my third one might be Rock N Rollercoaster. We can kind of talk about that more as we go through our day. I'll note here, currently Rock N Rollercoaster is undergoing refurbishment temporarily, and it's set to reopen in the summer of 2023. So depending on when you're watching this video and when you're planning your Disney trip, Rock N Rollercoaster may or may not be open, so be sure to check that. Obviously, if it's not open, choose a different Genie Plus option.
So when we stayed at a Skyliner resort, Pop Century, last year, the Skyliner started running at 7 a.m. and we got to Hollywood Studios just about 8 minutes after that, and through security by 7:10. We were literally like the first people in line at the tap-in area, and they opened the park at 7:30. And when we stay at the Polynesian, we actually drive our car so that we have control over when we get there and aim for this same time frame. You could take the bus and aim to be the first people on the bus from your resort, but we like to drive.
Yeah, sometimes there's delays in the buses, and that's made us miss early entry before. So we kind of like to have that control and drive. But gosh, staying on the Skyliner was really awesome for rope dropping Hollywood Studios. And to give you an example of timing for the early entry, we tapped into the park at 7:30. We were walking onto the Rise queue at 7:40, and we were in the vehicle riding at 7:50. Rise of the Resistance is an 18-minute ride, and so since we have to do rider switch, this actually takes a long time for both of us to be able to ride. So what we do is, while the second person is riding, the first person goes and takes the kids to Alien Swirling Saucer. Toy Story Land is just beyond Star Wars Land, and then that gives the kids something to do while the other person is doing their 18-minute ride on Rise of the Resistance.
Then the second rider for Rise can come meet us in Toy Story Land. We typically skip over Millennium Falcon because the kids can't all ride it, and we would have to do another rider switch. This would be a great time to ride it, though, if that's important to you, because the wait time shouldn't be too high, especially if you don't have to wait for rider switch like we do. You could just hop in that line and ride it early.
Okay, so now that we've ridden Rise and the kids have ridden Alien Swirling Saucers, it should maybe be right around the end of the official early entry time. So you've used up your early entry time and most of the actual official early entry time, but you can go ahead and try to hop in line for Slinky Dog before the park officially opens.
While doing rider switch for Slinky Dog, you can take the little ones to ride Alien Swirling Saucers again. I know our kids love to ride it over and over, depending on the wait time, or just let them explore all around Toy Story Land. It's a fun place to be walking around and checking out things.
So then at this point, usually early entry will be over. And this is when the plans are really going to go all which a ways, depending on what Genie Plus gives you. So if you do ride Slinky Dog, Toy Story Mania is a good next choice. It's just right across the walkway from Slinky Dog. The wait time at this point, right around park opening or shortly after park opening, shouldn't be too crazy high because the people who are rope dropping for official park opening time are running to Rise of the Resistance or Slinky Dog, not necessarily Toy Story Mania. So you might still be able to beat the crowds for that. On average, Thrill Data says maybe like a 30-ish minute wait around this time for Toy Story Mania, which is not bad. But wait times climb really quickly. So if you see a short wait, go ahead and hop in line.
So now we've done Toy Story Land rides. But before we leave, we have to get that Lunchbox Pop-Tart.
Oh my gosh, yeah.
These are like homemade Pop-Tarts with buttery pastry, with unique flavored filling. They're so good. This opens at official park opening time, and you can mobile order. So be sure to mobile order and save time and grab those and eat those as you move around the park. They're delicious.
Yeah, and I love they have like some classic ones that they usually always have, but then they'll have a seasonal one and change it out for the different seasons. And we've never had a bad one. It's always good. And I would say do this, though, after you ride Toy Story Mania, because if you went and did this and then rode Toy Story Mania, the wait time might be a lot higher. So then it's time to move to different parts of the park. So as I said before, this point in your day will be dictated by Genie Plus. Typically, I would be able to get a Mickey Minnie Runaway Railway return time maybe around the 9 o'clock or the 10 o'clock hour. So we can go and ride that next. Once you swipe in for Mickey Minnie Runaway Railway, I would usually go with Tower of Terror next as my next pick. The return time might be early afternoon or mid-afternoon for Tower of Terror by this point, but that's okay because the kids don't ride that anyway, and so it's okay for that to be a little bit later in the day for our plans. And then once you select that Genie Plus, you can set an alarm on your phone for 120 minutes or 2 hours after you've booked this, and then you'll be able to book another Lightning Lane, even if you haven't ridden Tower of Terror yet. So this way you might be able to stack Tower of Terror and Rock N Rollercoaster in the afternoon if Genie Plus follows averages and if Rock N Rollercoaster is open when you go. There's all kinds of caveats, but this has worked, and based on thrill data and averages, you should be able to do this.
So now, until time for our Genie Plus, we choose some filler attractions that we like to do. So we will talk through some of our favorite of these. These are in no particular order. We pick what fits with our schedule that day.
I would say one of our tops is the Frozen Sing-Along. It's right by Mickey and Minnie Runaway Railway, and it's absolutely wonderful. The kids love it for the music, but the show is also really hilarious and super fun, and they inject some humor that adults can appreciate too, so it's really fun for us as well. The showtimes are listed in My Disney Experience, but they're typically on the half hour and last 30 minutes. But you want to get there at least 15 minutes early, maybe even 30 minutes early to line up and be able to get a seat before the show starts.
And just down from the Frozen show is Olaf Meet and Greet. This is a huge hit with our kids, so we always make time for it. It's usually about a 30-minute wait. There's also a Mickey and Minnie meet and greet, but we typically skip this here because we meet Mickey in the other parks, but Mickey is dressed up as Sorcerer Mickey here, so if you really want to see that, go ahead and put that on your list.
And then back towards Star Wars Land is Muppets 3D. This is a 3D movie with some other fun effects thrown in, and it doesn't have a line really, you just have to wait for the next showtime to start. This is something we nearly always do when we're in Hollywood Studios because it doesn't have a wait, it's a good filler, and the kids love it. And I mean, frankly, we love it too.
If you've listened to any of our other content previously, you wouldn't be surprised by that. We're big fans of the Muppets here.
And Muppets 3D is a great option to do before lunch because it kind of has you circling back towards Star Wars land. And my favorite thing to eat in Hollywood Studios is the Ronto wrap from Ronto Roasters in Star Wars land. This is a pita bread filled with pork and sausage and slaw with a peppercorn sauce. It is so good. However, the kids don't really, and they don't really sell anything else there, and there's not a whole lot of seating. So what we typically do for lunch is one of us will go with the kids to ABC Commissary and do a mobile order there. They have some good kid options. Another one of us will do a mobile order, go run into Star Wars Land and pick that up, and then walk back to ABC Commissary, and we can all eat together at that meeting point. While you're in Star Wars Land, though, right by Ronto Roasters is Kat Saka's Kettle, and there's a Kat Saka's Cold Brew Coffee. This is the cold brew coffee with a sweet foam on top and topped with like Cocoa Puffs. It is so good. If you're a coffee lover, I highly recommend that as well. You get your Ronto wraps, get your coffee, and walk back over and meet up with your family with something with the kids. And while I'm talking about food, let me just keep talking about food because I always like talking about food. We recently did a Hollywood and Vine character meal, and we were really surprised at how good the food was, and the character interaction was some of the best character interaction that we have had at any character meal. We saw each character multiple times, and the food really was so good. So that's a really great option to do for lunch too if you're looking at a character meal. We're going to have a full review of that meal coming up soon. So hit subscribe and stay tuned for that.
Okay, so back to the filler attractions. Indiana Jones is a really cool show. If you have time, you should watch this. It's an outdoor covered seating area, and the show shows off all these different stunts. There are explosions, really neat effects here. The show times are listed in the My Disney Experience app. Currently 10:45, 12, 1:15, and so on through the afternoon. So if you can make this, you should try. It's great.
And then in the afternoon, hopefully we have gotten a Tower of Terror and a Rock N Rollercoaster lightning lane stacked. So we start to head over towards that part of the park. As filler attractions over there, there's the Beauty and the Beast stage show. This is a live retelling of the story, and show times, again, are listed in My Disney Experience, but they're typically 11, 1, 2, 4, and 5. So you can use that too as a filler attraction while you're waiting for your Genie Plus.
There's also the Lightning McQueen Racing Academy. This is another attraction that the only waiting you'll do is to wait for the next showtime. It has an animatronic Lightning McQueen. It's a really fun show. Our little one, man, he can't wait to get in there and see Lightning McQueen. It's a lot of fun.
And there's little cars outside for them to explore too. Like there's a cruise and
DJ.
So that's fun while they're waiting. If it's not time for the showtime yet, they can look at those cars. Tower of Terror and Rock N Rollercoaster are both rides that we have to use Rider Switch for again. So this can be a great time to go pop into one of the shops down Sunset Boulevard and do some shopping, or grab an ice cream at Hollywood Scoops, or there's a stealth Joffrey's Coffee kind of tucked in back by Tower of Terror that hardly ever has any line, so that you could kind of sneak back there and get a coffee.
And I'll point out, if for some reason you didn't get the Genie Plus for Rock N Rollercoaster, there is a single rider line for this. It moves faster sometimes, typically, than the normal standby line. So it may be an option for you if you're the only one who wanted to ride this in your party and you don't mind sitting next to a stranger. It might get you on the ride quicker.
And once you've scanned in for your ride, or 120 minutes has passed since the last lightning lane that you booked, you can look and see if there's anything else that you could take advantage of. So one of the meet and greets, or one of the shows, or maybe Millennium Falcon might still be available. Or you can get a Genie Plus for a ride that you already rode without Genie Plus. So like if Toy Story Mania is available and you want to go back and ride that again, skipping the line, you could do that with Genie Plus if there's still availability. But after we've done these 2 rides in the afternoon, usually our little ones have kind of had it for the day and they're tired. If you have the stamina though, the nighttime show Fantasmic at Hollywood Studios is just spectacular and worth watching. The show times vary, but typically are like 8 p.m. and 9:30 p.m. And that's a really, really special show with a ton of characters. So if you're able to stay up, that would be worth watching. And there are things that we skipped over, like the Disney Junior Dance Party, Star Wars Launch Bay, Disney Junior Meet and Greets, Walt Disney Presents, which is a documentary about Walt, Vacation Fun, a Mickey animated short. These are all additional great fillers with little to no wait times. But for time's sake, we just highlighted our favorites.
So this is a strategy that has worked for us multiple times, and we've had days where it didn't work out so well. One time we were there and Slinky and Rise and Rock N Rollercoaster and Mickey and Minnie Runaway Railway were all down for most of the morning. And in Hollywood Studios, if one ride goes down, all the people shift to the other rides, and it can be difficult to get in any ride without a very long wait. But go into the day with a plan, be flexible, use Genie Plus to your advantage, and also use the filler attractions to ensure that you have things to do between your lightning lanes. Thanks for watching. If you found this video helpful, please like and subscribe. We also have similar videos on Animal Kingdom and Epcot strategies. And until next time, keep dreaming.